Australian businesses right now are sitting on just these massive mountains of data, like more than ever before. But here's the crazy part. Only about 12% are actually using generative AI to transform their operations. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera. We are coming to you from the C9 podcast show, and we are just absolutely thrilled to welcome the followers of the C9 podcast and business page.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this right now and you're an Australian business owner or a C-level executive, we are speaking directly to you today. This entire deep dive is, well, it's custom tailored for your specific strategic needs.
Right, because our mission today is to unpack this exclusive briefing on how generative AI is fundamentally revolutionizing custom business intelligence or BI dashboards right here in Australia.
Exactly. We're going to explore this massive and frankly, widening gap between traditional static reporting and true real-time AI analytics.
And that 12% statistic you just mentioned, from the Deloitte 2026 State of AI report, that is just the perfect place to start.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. Because when you contrast that 12% adoption rate in Australia with the global average of 25%, it reveals a pretty stark reality. Australian executives are adopting these tools at, well, less than half the global rate.
Wow, less than half.
Yeah, so the pressing question is why they are falling behind, and I guess more importantly, how they can rapidly close that gap.
Right, so let's bring that disconnect into a room we are all super familiar with. Because if we look at boardrooms across Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne right now, the reality on the ground is just, well, it's archaic.
It really is.
You've got executives walking into these critical strategy meetings, clutching printed spreadsheets or, looking at digital dashboards that a data analyst had to manually assemble last Friday.
Right, so by the time the coffee is poured on Tuesday morning, the numbers are useless.
Exactly. The numbers they're using to make multi-million-dollar decisions are already totally stale.
And this scenario, it plays out the exact same way every single week. I mean, the first question in the meeting is almost always, hey, does this dashboard reflect yesterday's port delay?
Let me guess. The answer is no.
Universally no.
Yeah.
And it's really crucial to understand that this isn't a lack of data. It's not a data generation problem.
Right, because companies are tracking everything these days.
Exactly. Australian companies are meticulous about generating digital records. They track every transaction, logistics events, customer interactions, all of it. The bottleneck is entirely a business intelligence development problem.
Meaning the tools themselves are just out of date.
Yeah, the legacy tools we rely on were engineered for a much slower world, a world where weekly batch reporting was just considered an acceptable standard of speed.
Which is wild to think about now. Relying on those legacy BI dashboards is basically like, well, it's like driving a heavy vehicle down the Pacific Highway, but you're only looking in the rearview mirror.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And to make it infinitely worse, the mirror is on a 1-week delay. So like if a truck pulls out in front of you on Wednesday, you don't even see it in the mirror until the following Monday.
Which is terrifying if you're the one driving the business.
Exactly. So if we have all this incredible granular transaction data flowing into our servers every single second, why are our decision-making systems still stuck in the past?
Well, that driving analogy perfectly illustrates this concept called decision latency.
Decision latency. Okay, break that down for me.
So decision latency is the measurable time gap between an event happening out in the real world, say, like a sudden spike in material costs, and a leader actually knowing about it and executing a response.
Right, so it's the delay in reaction time.
Basically, yeah. And in 2026, tolerating days of decision latency is just a massive competitive vulnerability. The sources show that only 65% of Australian leaders plan to raise their AI investment this year, which trails the 84% global average.
Which goes back to that gap we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the organizations that are investing, they aren't just buying faster reporting tools. They are fundamentally rewiring how they converse with their own business data.
Converse with the data. Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that rewiring. Because the briefing outlines this major transition from reactive data retrieval to proactive intelligence, right?
Right, and the first major mechanism for that is natural language querying.
Which basically means bypassing those clunky dashboard filters entirely and just asking questions in plain English.
Yeah, and the operational shift here is just profound. Instead of an executive logging into some portal trying to remember which specific tab holds the regional finance data and clicking through a dozen drop-down menus.
Which is exhausting just to think about.
It really is. Instead of all that, they can literally just type or speak a prompt directly into the system.
So they can just ask, like, show me gross margin by business unit for the past 90 days, compare it to the prior year, and flag any unit that declined more than 3 percentage points.
Exactly. And behind the scenes, the AI translates that plain English into complex SQL database queries in milliseconds, retrieves the live data, and renders a custom visualization right then and there.
That is incredible.
It is. Globally, 59% of employees can now query data conversationally. It completely democratizes access to insights because, well, you no longer need to submit an IT ticket just to look at your own metric.
Okay, but retrieving a number faster doesn't necessarily solve the core issue for an executive, right? Like, if that newly generated chart suddenly flashes red, the immediate next question in the boardroom is always, why?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone wants to know what's driving the drop.
Right, so that's where we move from just retrieving data to generating narrative context. Which brings us to the second shift, automated narrative generation.
Because numbers without context are just noise. A legacy dashboard will tell you revenue is down 8% this month, and then basically just leave you to investigate the cause yourself.
You have to go digging through the data manually.
Yeah. But with generative AI woven into the BI environment, the system provides the metric alongside a synthesized paragraph explaining the underlying drivers.
Oh, so it actually tells a story.
It does. It explicitly states something like revenue is down 8%, which is driven by a 14% drop in manufacturing orders, directly correlating with a lead time increase flagged by your largest supplier on the 4th of this month.
Wow. So the metric and the root cause arrive at your desk simultaneously. You just eliminated like 3 days of analyst overtime required to hunt down that root cause.
Exactly. And taking it a step further, the system eventually reaches a point where you don't even have to ask the question in the first place.
Wait, really? How does that work?
That's the third shift, proactive anomaly detection. The system constantly monitors the data streams in the background. It finds the variance before the executive does.
So it's like having a digital analyst working 24/7.
Pretty much. It sends a localized alert on a Tuesday afternoon about a sudden drop in sales velocity, rather than waiting for everyone to painfully discover it together during the pipeline review next Monday.
It shifts the executive posture entirely. You aren't managing the reporting process anymore. You are actually managing the business based on this continuous intelligent surveillance of your metrics.
That's the goal.
But, okay, here's the wall I keep hitting in this research. If the goal is conversational query and automated narrative, why couldn't an Australian business owner just, buy a generic off-the-shelf large language model, an LLM like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, point it at their company's Excel files, and get these exact same results?
Yeah, that is the exact trap that a staggering number of businesses are falling into right now.
Really? A trap?
A massive trap. Before we even look at the financial side of it, we have to look at the structural failure of off-the-shelf AI. A generic large language model is essentially a highly advanced prediction engine trained on the broad internet.
Right, it's read everything online.
Yeah, so it understands language beautifully, but it does not intrinsically understand what your specific company's numbers actually mean. It just reads text patterns.
Oh, I see. So the AI can process the language fluently, but it completely lacks the bespoke business logic required to do the math accurately for your specific company.
Exactly. Let's look at how that illusion of capability plays out in the real world. Say you enable a generic Copilot model across your entire enterprise. These models rely on generalized industry schemas.
Okay.
So your company might define an active customer as someone who has completed a transaction in the last 60 days. But the generic AI just assumes the industry standard is 90 days.
Oh, man. So the numbers are going to be completely skewed.
Completely. It doesn't know that your unique gross margin calculation deliberately excludes specific intercompany transfers because of some specialized cost allocation strategy your finance team designed a decade ago.
So the speed of off-the-shelf AI is actually a liability here. You're essentially just automating the creation of confident errors.
Confident errors is the perfect term for it. Hallucinations over poorly defined data are incredibly dangerous because LLMs are designed to be helpful, right? When they encounter a gap in their knowledge regarding your specific logic, they guess.
And they sound really smart while doing it.
Oh, they produce beautifully formatted, highly articulate, plausible-looking answers that are just fundamentally incorrect. The research shows 90% of companies are using some form of AI in their BI environments, but only 39% are seeing any measurable profit impact.
That's a massive discrepancy.
It is, and it's entirely caused by companies trusting generic AI to interpret unstructured, undocumented legacy data.
And aside from the huge risk of confident errors, there is the glaring financial trap of these off-the-shelf SaaS tools.
Yes, the licensing costs.
Right, software as a service BI platforms price their models per user. It kind of reminds me of an aggressive commercial landlord who just, raises your rent every single time a new employee walks through the front door.
That is a brilliant analogy.
At some point, you look at your balance sheet and realize it makes vastly more financial sense to just build and own the building yourself.
Yeah, because the compounding costs are just eye-watering. The briefing highlights this mid-sized Australian manufacturer with 150 staff. When you utilize premium off-the-shelf AI licensing, you can easily hit $100,000 annually in subscription fees.
100 grand a year just to rent the tool.
Exactly. Over a 3-year horizon, that's up to $300,000 in cumulative operational costs. And the irony is, that figure often far exceeds the capital required to build a fully custom BI platform that the business owns outright.
Plus, when you rent that software, you are completely locked into their ecosystem. You don't own the underlying intellectual property, you don't control the AI roadmap, and you are entirely at the mercy of their next pricing update.
Exactly. Building a custom architecture shifts analytics from this uncontrollable escalating operational expense into a depreciable capital asset. You own the IP, you own the tech stack, and you can deploy it to 1,000 users without paying an additional cent in licensing fees.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. If generic LLMs guess and fail, and renting SaaS software traps you financially, how do we actually engineer an AI that tells the absolute truth about a specific company?
Right, and the briefing points to something called the semantic layer.
The semantic layer, okay, what is that?
It is the most critical technical concept in this entire transformation. The quality of any AI-generated insight depends entirely on the data architecture beneath it.
Makes sense. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Research from IBM and BCG points out this really sobering fact. 70% of enterprise AI failures have absolutely nothing to do with the AI model itself. The LLM is fine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the initiative fails because of poor data plumbing.
So 70% of the time, the business blames the AI, but the reality is they fed a Ferrari dirty fuel.
Precisely. And the filter that cleans that fuel is the semantic layer. Think of it as a governed translation engine sitting securely between your raw, messy database tables and the large language model.
Okay, so it translates the data.
Yeah. In a raw SQL database, your revenue column might be cryptically labeled REVQ3 final V2. The LLM has no idea what that means.
It just looks like a random string of text.
Right. The semantic layer explicitly maps the business concept of revenue to that exact column and applies the mathematical rules like subtracting tax and refunds before the AI is ever allowed to even see it.
It's essentially building a customized, mathematically rigorous dictionary tailored exclusively to the unique DNA of the business.
That is exactly what it is.
But that raises an operational hurdle, doesn't it? Most businesses know their legacy data is a total mess. How clean does the underlying database need to be before we can even begin building this dictionary?
The hard truth is that assuming your data is perfectly clean is the fastest route to a production failure. Every established company's data is messy, siloed, and full of inconsistencies.
Right, nobody has perfect data.
Exactly. That is why specialized developers structure these builds, starting with a rigorous data discovery phase. Before a single line of AI code is written, they audit every legacy system, document the data lineage, and cleanse the inconsistencies.
So they do the heavy lifting first.
Yeah. Only then do they design that custom semantic dictionary. Without it, the AI guesses. With it, the AI is tethered directly to your exact audited business logic.
Okay, the architectural theory makes total sense, but we need to ground this in reality. Australian C-level executives need to see the practical application and the hard return on investment.
Let's look at some real-world examples.
Yeah, the briefing details how this transforms the entire supply chain, and it's fascinating to see how the data flows from one industry sector to the next. Let's look at how this plays out in real life.
Okay, so we can trace a single product's journey to see the compounding value. Let's start on the manufacturing floor up in Queensland or Victoria.
Okay, manufacturing.
Manufacturers are integrating generative AI to monitor overall equipment effectiveness, or OEE. The AI is constantly reading the raw telemetry from the production machines.
So it's watching the machines in real time.
Exactly.
Hmm.
If a conveyor belt slows down by a fraction of a percent, the AI logs the anomaly, recalculates the day's yield, and automatically generates a shift handover report for the incoming supervisor.
And that single delay on the manufacturing floor immediately ripples out to the logistics sector, right?
It does. The connected supply chain is where custom BI just absolutely shines. Because the logistics fleet is tied into the same overarching data architecture, the AI spots the manufacturing delay and instantly recalculates the volume forecasting for the National Distribution Center.
That's amazing.
McKinsey's data shows that this specific type of AI-driven forecasting improves volume accuracy by up to 10% and reduces operational logistics costs by up to 15%.
So the trucks are literally rerouted, and the warehouse labor is adjusted before the delayed product even leaves the factory. And then that data flows all the way down to the retail floor.
Exactly. In retail and e-commerce, the system using that updated logistics data to generate daily, plain English morning briefings for the store managers in Melbourne.
So they just wake up and read a summary.
Yeah. The manager wakes up, opens their tablet, and reads a customized AI report stating that a key promotional product will be delayed by 2 days, alongside a recommendation to shift floor displays to alternative, high-margin stock to protect daily revenue targets.
Wow.
Retailers utilizing BI for this level of predictive customer and stock analytics are seeing 19% higher revenue growth than their static competitors.
The compounding effect of that speed is just incredible. The Forrester report notes a 127% average 3-year ROI for organizations implementing these strategies, with a decision-making speed that is 2.5 times faster.
And the payback period is fast too.
Yeah, the payback period for the initial custom build is typically just 12 to 18 months. Think about that. If a company is executing strategic pivots 2.5 times faster than their competitor across town, day in and day out over a 12-month period, that doesn't just offer a slight operational edge, it places them in an entirely different league of business.
The data bears that out completely. Predictive analytics reduces decision latency by 35%. If your AI architecture allows you to react to a supply chain bottleneck or a sudden drop in regional sales 35% faster than the other guy, every single time, the gap between you and your data-passive competitors widens relentlessly.
It's exponential.
It really is. Real-time analytics compresses the time between an event occurring and a decision-maker successfully intervening.
Moving fast is undeniably powerful. But look, the reality of operating in Australia is that executives are highly aware of risk. We operate in a very strict regulatory environment.
We do.
So if we are handing this level of analytical power over to AI, how do we navigate the red tape safely and compliantly?
Well, governance cannot be an afterthought. It has to be the foundation. Deploying AI without strict architectural governance is a massive compliance liability in Australia. We have the Privacy Act, 1988, dictating the handling of personal data.
Right.
For financial and insurance services, you have the APRA CPS 234 standards requiring rigorous information security. And overarching all of this is the Australian AI ethics framework, which demands accountability and transparency in automated systems.
And that transparency is really the sticking point, isn't it? If a bespoke AI system generates a predictive report that leads a board to make a major multi-million-dollar resource allocation, how do we prove to a regulatory auditor why the AI made that specific recommendation?
That requirement is the primary advantage of a custom architecture. Off-the-shelf SaaS tools are often a black box. You put data in and an answer comes out, but you can't see the internal math.
It's totally hidden.
Yeah. Custom builds utilize a framework called Governance by Design, which integrates explainability modules directly into the platform.
Explainability modules. Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that. How does it physically show its work to an auditor?
An explainability module acts like a mathematical breadcrumb trail. If the AI suggests cutting regional inventory by 10%, an auditor doesn't just have to take the machine's word for it.
They can actually trace it.
Yeah, they can click on that recommendation, and the system will expose the exact data lineage. It visually traces the logic back through the semantic layer, showing the precise SQL database cells, the specific historical sales trends, and the exact mathematical formulas that generated that output.
Oh, wow.
There is no black box. The entire logical pathway is auditable.
Okay, that solves the audit trail. What about internal security? Because, we don't want a junior marketing manager asking the AI to summarize the executive payroll data.
No, definitely not. Governance by Design includes granular, role-based access control at the query level. The semantic layer physically restraining AI from accessing or summarizing restricted data based on the user's credentials, regardless of how cleverly they phrase the prompt.
So there's no hacking it.
Nope. It also creates immutable audit logs of every single AI-generated insight and exactly who requested it. Furthermore, regarding data sovereignty, which is a paramount concern under the Privacy Act, custom builds allow you to keep sensitive business data entirely onshore.
That's huge for compliance.
It is. You can utilize localized Australian Azure infrastructure or even deploy private open source models like Meta's Llama series, isolated entirely within your own secure environment. No sensitive proprietary data is ever sent out to a public overseas API.
It gives an enterprise the blistering speed of generative AI, wrapped in the uncompromising security of an on-premise vault.
Yep.
That's just brilliant. Let's bring all of these threads together. The competitive window for implementing these tools is wide open right now, but it is not going to stay open indefinitely.
Not at all.
Relying on static, week-old dashboards, or falling for the financial trap of generic AI copilots that blindly guess at your business logic, that is leaving serious operational capital on the table. The 12% of Australian organizations that are moving decisively right now are building customized, semantic, layer-driven capabilities that will take their competitors years to reverse engineer.
Years. Absolutely.
Building a semantic layer, mapping your data lineage, and owning your own IP isn't something you can just buy off a shelf with a monthly subscription. It requires bespoke architecture. That is why organizations looking to make this permanent shift partner with C9. C9 is Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company.
That's right.
They don't just sell you a software license. They start by rigorously mapping your unique data environment to engineer a platform you actually own.
And that initial data discovery phase is critical to finding your highest value use case. I highly recommend that leadership teams book a no-obligation discovery session with their architects to understand exactly what a custom build looks like for their specific operational bottlenecks.
To take that step, visit www.c9.com.au to start the conversation. That's www.c9.com.au. And for all our listeners, make sure to click that follow button and share this deep dive with other C-level executives, board members, or business owners who could seriously benefit from understanding the mechanics of this shift.
And as we wrap up this briefing, I want to leave you with one final operational thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire deep dive exploring how custom AI architecture can help you understand your own business faster. But consider the strategic flip side. As these bespoke predictive models become the new baseline for industry leaders, what happens to your hard-earned market share the day your competitor's AI starts accurately predicting your company's next strategic move before you have even made it?
Oh man, that is a chilling but entirely realistic reality to prepare for. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.